preach the gospel to every creature. And that's what I'll do, man. I'll do it in the tunnels. I'll do it everywhere from the tops of the roofs to the bottom of the earth. But I'm much more familiar and comfortable down there than I am out here. This is the world of oddities where people think this stuff is like legend and myth and strangeness. And it's like you go into these families, they broker deals with this stuff. They get down with these things and they generationally raise their children to have that seed line in them. So it's a different world than what most people are used to. But I tell you what, these animals they carry a history of what this land used to look like and what these people used to be. And it wasn't that long ago. This is a short history when you think of the last 150 years in the United States. That's not long ago. It was a wilderness. And there used to be 150 million people who lived here, who raised animals and livestock and farmed and cultivated landscapes and brilliant, massive, beautiful cities. And yet they interacted with giants and these creatures that were oddities for time and antiquity.
You're talking about unwritten history.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. You keep throwing everything out here, and I haven't even got to how you met your wife.
Oh, yeah. We got there.
So are you talking along the lines of like people talking about Tartaria today and like how they basically built over entire civilizations and some of these structures that we have in these big cities? Like, for instance, I've heard this and I've heard both sides of it. So in Philadelphia, they say that City Hall is actually remnants of an old civilization. We didn't actually build it. It has been here. Maybe we built on top of it or something like that. But when coming from that area, I used to run Center City, especially as like a rookie driver. They send everybody down to Center City. And so you're pedaling freight down in Center City with a freaking truck. And I can't describe to people how massive City Hall is in Philly. It's one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen in my life. And I've been in it. It is absolutely massive. You will get lost if you don't know where you're going. And I forget how long, but the idea of decades sticks out in my head. Like I was told that it took an extremely long time to build that building. And that always sat weird to me. I was like, how does it take that long to build a building? Like, this isn't like something that was built, I say thousands of years ago where they were, making the brick by brick, make the brick, then put the brick there kind of thing or whatever, And so that I go off on that spiel because that's something that always sticks out in my head when I talk about Tartaria and things like that. But is that kind of like the angle that you're talking about? Like this idea that there was, you said 150,000 or a million people that lived here and they traded with giants and the cities and civilizations. What happened to those things?
Well, I wasn't really hitting on the Tartaria and the architecture side of it. And there's other examples like the City Hall in Iowa and other places. I traveled, like I told you before, 4.5 years in an RV. And at the time, mud flood in Tartaria was in. And I was like, what? I'm going to go look. So I just started traveling around to these places specifically to try to find and identify and document evidence of this catastrophic event, or like, are these recovered cities, as opposed to the idea that we, all built these with horse and buggy and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I wanted to know for myself, but that isn't specifically the history line that I was talking about. I'm talking about before that, the side of it that is definitely more like when you go in, like one of the best books for those of you that are book guys, The Discovery and Conquest of Mexico by Hernan del Castillo is the firsthand account of the conquistadors coming into the Americas and their strategies and tactics for infiltrating and enthroning a new deity known as Mary, right? The Queen of Heaven. They wanted to invoke her over this territory. And there was a massive battle between the priest class during that time. And you get to see these hierarchy of these ones that were worshiping in Mexico City predominantly, that was running a massive human trafficking campaign on all the sacrifices and slaughters that are happening for that. I mean, it's nationwide at that point. And we're talking millions of people that are being physically fed through butcheries to the priests. Like that's the way they did it. And that priest class fled north into the Americas when they got persecuted. And they came into the Americas, the Northern America, and they brought a lot of that ideology with them. And they began to use that, weaponize that power and start to take over the people that were up here. And they began to eradicate them and butcher them and force them into compliance with this. And then the land responded with this desecration and all these invaders began to come in. But this is stuff that they had prophesied was going to happen. And so a lot of them, they literally did not fight. They literally had prophecies that there was going to come bearded men with shiny metal helmets, and they're going to come and you're supposed to bow down and yield to them. And so that's what they did. That's why you had a few hundred guys with a few horses and dogs, unbelievable hunting dogs, crazy stories in there, full armor, killing squads of people. These dogs single-handedly. It's
From Europe?
Yeah, bro. You want to talk about what dogs can do? We have no idea
Really?
what dogs do. Oh yeah. DeSoto and what he brought with his dogs in the Americas, most terrifying things that the natives had ever encountered was the dogs, because they would kill hundreds of people, like just jump from one to the next, ripping throats out. Like, these are all documented things. So I love that side of the history of understanding where did this all come in here, and why was there the expunging of the record of anybody who had a culture or a written language. Well, that's because we wanted to support this ideology of manifest destiny for this invasion force that was coming from Europe, was that it is our right to rule over these savages and to begin to take their territory. But ahead of that was the surveyors, and then following them was this military expedition across the West, which was to the Army Corps of Civil Engineering, eradicate the history of the people out there. And that's what they did. That's why they built dams and rivers and lakes in specific places and changed geography. They're sponging any evidence that this is a advanced civilization. But we have firsthand accounts of people that said, we've been in the biggest cities of Europe, and over here, they're better and more beautiful and more grand and well-designed than anything we've ever encountered.
Wow.
This is not just one. Many, 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 many people that came over here in the beginning could not understand the capacity of the people that were here. This is the origin place of the earth in many more ways than what people think of as Africa. This place is where the first documented evidence of a horse, of a camel, of all of these languages, mummies, the oldest mummies in the world. All this stuff is here.
Here.
It's just not public.
Wow.
It's publicly accessible. It's just not popular.
You know what's interesting is that you say that, and fast forward a few hundred years, here we are. And now we look at European cities and we're like, man, they're so beautifully built. Look how clean they are, because our cities suck. Like, everything's falling apart. Nothing's built to last more than 50 years. Like, it's just, it kind of totally flip-flopped. That's wild. So, all right, I'm going to go back again. And I do want to hit on the story of